We are kind of in the middle of nowhere. There's a ton of trucks that are passing by. So what are we doing? Well, we're waiting for Doordash in a new area. Dropped my fiance off for nails. So we're kind of close to the south side of Chicago. But this is Oak Lawn or Oak Park or whatever. I don't know. A lot of Polish people are here, so it's not too bad. But definitely a more industrial type of zone. There's a lot of hangars and warehouses and whatnot. And a ton of trucks. So I'm so glad that I decided not to be a truck driver, because I just looked online and I was like, well, hey, that sounds like a pretty cool thing, you know, an OTR. You get to make $100,000 after a year or two. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I don't mind the hours, whatever. You're just driving a truck. And I'm glad I didn't, because obviously that's really loud, and my ears are not doing too well, and they would be doing incredibly horribly driving a truck. But some of them do make good money. So we're waiting on some DoorDash orders, and I think this year we're going to make a couple $1,000s from DoorDash. This is a hobby. This is what I do on my free days. This is what I do after work sometimes if I need money for gas. And I'm motivated right now because the top salesman of the month will get gas for free. So this is a new thing starting, I think, this month going on to the next. Right now I am the top salesman. So I just have to keep my spot, and right now I barely have any gas, so that's why we're doing DoorDash. This would really help. But let's go into how this year's going to look like. So far, so good with my plans, but we need to get more money. And I think this year is going to be a good year. I think if all goes well, on the minimum 80,000, we could even hit the six-figure range. To do that, to ensure that happens, we have to do YouTube, DoorDash, possibly other things, selling certain things, and of course selling cars is my main job. And while I'm driving through neighborhoods like these, where honestly they're not so bad, the average American lives through stuff like this. Sure, some of these cars might be a little bit under the weather, definitely not worth more than $5,000 trade-in value. We might have, for example, something like that. Cool. Those are dealership plates, and it's actually a sketchy dealership. Auto sales, J&J Auto Sales. Okay, anyways. Wouldn't want to work there. The average American, apartments like those, the average American is not living too well. They're not going through the American dream. They're not living in it, in action. So, trailer park behind me, and that's also how the average American might live. Or in these kind of communal apartment buildings right next to a busy street, right across from a cemetery. Really nice view. A ton of trucks. The American dream in action, baby. So I just did a DoorDash in a kind of sketchy place. So the average American is in certain areas living $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, and they might support another individual. Now, of course, these standards constantly change depending on which state you're in, whether you're in a high cost of living area like Chicago is. The average American, again, $45,000, $50,000. Sometimes if they're living in a large family, maybe you have multiple family members each making $30,000. You got the mom and dad, 30, 35, and then you got the daughter. And, again, these are poor families, lower income families. But in the dealership, we sell premium vehicles. And every now and then we have some lower priced, higher mileage vehicles that are trade-ins, or very rarely sometimes purchased if it's a older vehicle that we're selling, an Infinity. So one thing that I've noticed is sometimes these customers who come in purchasing a $20,000 vehicle, or even sometimes higher, they aren't making that much money. And that's perfectly understandable, but it all depends on their finances, how their finances look like. There's so many variables. You might have someone making $30,000 a year driving a $40,000 car plus taxes and fees plus insurance plus maintenance, and then you realize they cannot afford this, and then they tell you how much they spend on their housing. You take a look and you realize they have other loans, and it makes you realize that most of America is living in debt. I mean, right now I'm living in debt, and I want to change that. And over the next 2 years, you know, I'm going to probably be making good money. My fiance is going to get a great job, and she's going to be making good money. We're going to be a power couple. But I realize that right now, even though I'm making good money, it is an absolute struggle making good money. Now, one of the things is there's a lot of stuff that we have to purchase because we're new to the country. Well, I'm returning back, but I don't have many things, and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be replaced. You know, you need new clothing. I'm going to have to replace my laptop later this year. It's falling apart, but I'm still using it, 5 years old. And there's a lot of stuff where, you know, if there's an emergency, if you don't have health care and you need to go to the dentist, or you need to go to a doctor, like we were at a doctor yesterday and we found a lower price doctor, but, you know, $160 for the visit, and $37 at Walgreens for 1 month of medications. You know, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And that was on the lower end of the spectrum, because I've had doctor visits cost me $500, $600, and medications cost me, you know, antibiotics cost me over $100. So obviously health insurance is one thing. If you get health insurance from your work, great. But a lot of these people who are working, they're living paycheck to paycheck. They're living in massive debt. They're absolutely miserable. And the American dream doesn't look so pretty. You know, a lot of these people, they're one disaster away from being bankrupt. A currency exchange place that looks a little sketchy, but this isn't as bad as the pawnbroker stores and the payday loan shops that are in a lot of these lower income neighborhoods. You see, I'm stressed every single day about my finances, and I still will be stressed next year when I'm done paying debts and I'll be in a much better financial situation. And I think that the average American has just gotten themselves into a terrible position where something like the gas prices rising suddenly have changed a lot of people's lives, and the availability of anything that relies on these chips. So technology has gone up like crazy. Anything from computers to cars to, you know, there's a lot of logistics problems that have gone up because of the pandemic, because of the chip delays. You cannot get technology. Phones are going through the roof. Basically, anything that relies on these chips is very expensive. PlayStation 5s, Xboxes, crypto miners, you know, graphics cards, vehicles, used and new, have gone up like crazy. Real estate, inflation, just all across the board. And then all it takes is one health crisis. All it takes is just one crash while driving uninsured, or an uninsured driver hits your car and you don't have money for another car. Whatever the crisis might be, the average American just does not have any savings. I don't have any savings, and I will have savings in hopefully the next couple months, but right now it's paycheck to paycheck. And I fear for the people who make half of what I do and yet spend a lot more on a car than I am. I'm spending $318, and a lot of people are spending $400, $500, $600, and then, of course, the insurance and other costs that are associated with this. And yes, I probably could have chosen a cheaper vehicle, a Toyota. I probably could have done that and saved a little bit here and there, but most of my costs right now are associated. One of my largest costs is rent. I went through my finances, and rent is a lot. And maybe I'm overpaying by $100 or $200, but it's still expensive no matter where you go, and rent prices are rising. So one of the best things to do is if you already had a mortgage, but mortgages and everything right now, with house prices going up, it doesn't make sense. So you're stuck in a world where everything's going up, salaries cannot catch up, and things are going to get a lot worse over the next 10, 20 years. You know, in the future, we're not going to have Social Security income. We're not going to have a lot of stuff that the boomers have, as a lot of people are calling them. It's going to be a tough time. So we have to work as much as we can right now, make savings. You know, we have to somehow live through these tough times and invest. But the average American cannot invest, because how can they have any investments or savings if they're living paycheck to paycheck? And then you have this emergency. It could be a flat tire. It could be whatever. It could be a $500 emergency. I need to take out a payday loan, or I need to take out a loan from the bank or whatever. Even if you have good credit, it still is going to cost you money and cause unnecessary stress. And then if you don't get enough sleep because you're working 2 jobs, then maybe you cause a crash, or maybe you're freaking out and, you know, you get depression and anxiety and you need to go to a psychiatrist, or, you know, whatever. Maybe you get a heart attack from all this stress. That's later on down the line. But the average American is not living a good life. They're working a lot of hours. They're not making enough money, and the prices of everything is going up. The average person cannot save money. And I'm stressing right now. I know that I'm going to get out of this, and it's going to be a tough time that I will look back and never forget. But I know that a lot of people won't be able to get out of it. And yes, there's ways to get out, and some people don't want to work, and some people want to abuse government benefits and whatnot. But not everybody. And it's just really, I don't know, what can you do about this situation? It's sad, but, you know, certain people, unfortunately, depending on their circumstances, like, what if you got cancer right now? You know, there's a lot of what if situation. But I was just driving around here, and every single time I go into the city, it makes me wonder, wow, you know, I got a ton of financial stress, but it always could be worse, right? Always could be worse. I'm grateful for what I do have, but I know that if I stopped working, things could go downhill very quickly. Incredibly quickly. Having good credit is absolutely necessary for these emergencies, but even more so is having a couple $1,000s in savings, and then you'll be able to at least get out of any sticky situations. So, unfortunately, if you're working at a low-paying job, you have to either improve your skill set or change jobs or change locations or whatever, because later on down the line, it's not going to work for you. And I'm not in a good position. I want to do whatever I can to get out of these problems this year. So I know that the summer months I'm going to be earning more, and I cannot suddenly increase my life. I cannot increase my life standards. I cannot go out and buy a new flat screen TV. I don't care about that. Or a PS5 and all this and go crazy, you know, shopping sprees. No, I have to save money. So I'm excited for what's to come. I'm excited to make some good money in the next couple months. I'm getting a good paycheck this week, and that's going to rent, that's going to bills, that's going to everything, making sure everything's paid on time, and groceries and gas. And I hope gas prices go down, but it is just a weird situation where I see a lot of clients making a lot less money than I do, and some of them are not making great financial decisions. Some are in a much better financial place than I am, but it's also due to age. Some of these clients are, well, older, and some of them have admitted to me that yes, they used to have terrible credit and they were in a bad situation, but they got out of it, and I will get out of it, and hopefully a lot of people who are in this situation are able to get out of it, but some won't. So anyways, the American